Team Media.
Welcome to the DGD podcast.
Juan Daniels, touchdown Georgia.
This is your favorite receiver, Juan Daniels, and you're listening to the DGD podcast with my man, Robert Reynolds. Go Dawgs!
Welcome to this episode of the DGD podcast. Guys, the dawn of the Dawgs. It's here. It's upon us. As always, the NCDGD himself, Robert Reynolds, and we have a plethora of guests. Obviously, Juan Daniels, Mr. Co-host, along with two Clemson fans. One, Aaron Bass. Obviously, he's been on the show before. If you're not familiar with Aaron, he runs Fifth Quarter Clemson. And our special guest that I kept it under wraps up until today, Brad Pope, former safety from Clemson. Guys, Aaron, Brad, welcome to the show. Obviously, Juan, glad to see you back. Look, it's the big day tomorrow, guys. I think we're all ready. I think college football in itself is ready. You know, there's so much to talk about. But before we get into this, look, there's so much to talk about. We've got to give a shout-out to my guys at La Terrain. Quality watches at a non-luxury price tag. I'm rocking the Compass today. Also, make sure, look, DGD code at checkout, laterrain.com. Before September 10th gets you a chance to win 2 tickets to the UGA South Carolina game. So go over to laterrain.com. That's la-terrain, TOURAINE.com. Use DGD at checkout and get entered to win 2 tickets. Guys, look, glad to have you on. Georgia Clemson, I would say probably the biggest game all year tomorrow, and I can't be more excited for it. But let's talk about welcoming on Brad and Aaron. Aaron, welcome back. Brad, you know, a lot of people may not remember this, but, you know, you and Juan played in these games back in the early to mid-'90s. So I want to ask you first, Brad, what was your experience with playing Georgia? Juan as well. I want to hear from a player's perspective, what kind of game should we expect from UGA Clemson tomorrow?
Man, it's talking about a rivalry. It's been a storied rivalry for many years, and now it's back again. Back in the early 90s when I played at Clemson, you know, we had 2 great games against Georgia. They beat us both times. I had to face Eric Sire in high school at Marietta, and I had to face him again in college. So it was always close games, always came down to the wire. It seemed like it was always a field goal game, you know, and they beat us twice back in the early 90s. So some great teams, some phenomenal players. You know, I got to know a lot of those guys, you know, beyond college as well, and training with those guys, getting ready for the NFL. But, man, what a great rivalry. I'm so excited about this game. It's probably the biggest game of the year.
Without question. Juan, obviously we talked a little bit about this yesterday, but we want to touch back on it today. You know, leading up to a game of this magnitude, right? Obviously everybody knows the rivalry. From your mindset, what was it like going into, you know, to games against Clemson? What was that mindset like?
Well, you know, first of all, the mystique when you actually go to play at Clemson Stadium. And like I said yesterday, there's nothing more exciting actually from an opponent standpoint than to see those guys jumping up and down the field about, you know, on that hill about to rub Howard's Rock. And then they come down there and there's just electricity going up there. So, again, it's like going back in time, and I could probably see Brad, you know, jumping up and down, getting excited, you know, running down the hill with his teammates. But just the atmosphere and the Clemson fan base, they're amazing. They're awesome. And so you really have to strap it on. That year in 95, I think we ended up winning 24-19. It was a hard-fought battle, and they brought it. They bring it every play, and so I don't expect anything different when it actually comes to Saturday.
You know, obviously, these are 2 former players here that's played in this rivalry. Aaron, me and you are not so lucky to have been able to play in this, but we do a lot of talking. We do a lot of writing. You know, I want to hear your thoughts on this game and the rivalry in itself over the years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, they both harped on it very well. This is a historic rivalry that usually comes down to a one-possession game. As of late, you know, we haven't both Clemson and UGA have grown into what my opinion is national powerhouses, the elite of the elite. being born and raised in Georgia, my dad's a Clemson alum, and it's a lot. All of my friends gave me grief. I ended up going to the 2014 game with a very good friend whose entire family is UGA alums. That stunk. But outside of that, it's a phenomenal game, phenomenal atmosphere, and I'm just really, really excited to pack my bags tonight and head up to Charlotte in the morning.
I think Charlotte's it's gonna be a wild place, right? I mean, me being in North Carolina, like knowing what Charlotte's like in general, it's always hectic. But look, when you have a game like this, I'm telling you right now, Charlotte is going to be wild, absolutely wild. Obviously, kind of doing this right here. We're going to take it back a little bit. The magnitude of this game, I think, could be the highest that I think that rivalry's ever been. Right, 2 top 5 teams. Beginning of the season, this is a playoff caliber game right now, and to me, I think that's a testament to both Clemson and Georgia. And the reason why I say that is because you don't really see a lot of teams playing these kind of games to start the season, let alone in the regular season. You wait for the playoffs. So I applaud Georgia and Clemson for both setting this game up. But we're going to take it back to a little bit here and go back to the last time that Clemson played Georgia, and that was 2013 and 2014, the home-and-home series. For those that aren't familiar, 2013, Clemson wins at home, and then 2014, Georgia returns the favor. It seems to me that, looking into these games, there's always these players that, that really step up to the plate, right? Whether you look at 2014 and you look at Todd Gurley, right? And in 2013, there were so many players that make huge strides in these games and become household names in a game like this. So looking into this right here, there's teams, or both teams have players on each side of the ball. Brad, I want to get your opinion here. Looking into this game tomorrow, who's a player or players that you think are going to step up to the plate and really make their name known tomorrow?
Man, I think defensively for Clemson, Breezy's been there, right? He's already made his name known last year, but he's going to be tough to handle on a defensive line. You got a great supporting cast around him. Skalski's a huge leader on that defense. I'm sure he's going to step up as well as usual. I'm hoping that our back end can come in strong. Turner's obviously a team leader, been there for a long time, smart player. Offensively, you got Ross back. So, you've seen what he can do a couple years ago against Alabama, right? He's going to be electric. Our quarterback is phenomenal. I just think you got, both sides of the ball. You got a lot of athletes, and I think that obviously we're going to see who they're going to showcase at running back. The Shipley come in, and get some carries for us. And I know how electric he's going to be as a true freshman. So, I just think that, there's so many guys on both sides of the ball that can step up tomorrow and be playmakers for us.
To add to this right here, I think, looking at the running backs, I think Lynn J. Dixon might be a true threat here. But Will Shipley's been touted, obviously 5-star out of Charlotte area. Aaron, I want to continue with you. Obviously, we heard what Brad had to say in regards to who he thinks is going to step up. Who do you think, or, do you reflect Brad's thoughts, or do you have any other names that would step up to the plate and make their names known tomorrow?
Oh,
yep.
I'm sorry. On what Brad said, defensively speaking, it's just this is probably going to be number 1, number 2 national defense, number 2, number 1s. Brian Bresee is just an absolute, I hate to say it, but he's a dog on that defensive line. He gets after it. He eats up double teams and he frees it up for KJ, XT, and or Miles. Going in this game, Clemson has a little bit of concerns at the DB slot, but it isn't because of inexperience, right? It's just because we're rotating new guys in. Sheridan Jones is expected to be more of a workhorse out wide on the boundary, and then Landon Sanders is coming back off of injury late last year. But one of the big things about Clemson is its defensive leadership this year. You know, Skalski, Turner, Xavier Thomas, Tyler Davis. I mean, there are true leaders in every position group on this defense, which is something, frankly, Clemson hasn't had since 2018. So it's really nice to see our defense is expected, and it's holding itself accountable to be one of the best in the nation. Offensively, you know, we're changing out Trevor for DJ. We're trading out Travis for Lin J, Will, Kobe, Michael. You know, like Phil. Like I can go down the list at that running back spot, and it's a little bit funny. Clemson's running back core this year is very comparative to what Georgia's was back in 2014. I mean, a little bit different is Todd Gurley was more of a household name for UGA, and Clemson doesn't really have that yet. But I mean, this is a Clemson running back core that is truly 4 to 5 deep. That if you put them anywhere else in the country, they are starting. They are getting 30 carries a game. So this game's truly going to come down to the trenches, and it's, you know, like I can't really like even make any prediction because everyone knows the battle at the line of scrimmage can go either way.
Absolutely. You know, looking into it, right, obviously, you know, Georgia has some things as well. Juan, I want to get your opinion here. Who are some players on the Georgia side of the ball that could make their name known tomorrow? Obviously, you know, listening back to it, I think you look at, you know, Nick Chubb for Georgia, right? Nick Chubb kind of came out of nowhere as a freshman. Everybody remembers his first touchdown against Clemson. For Georgia fans, it was beautiful to watch. You know, who are your predictions on tomorrow? Who's going to make a name for themselves tomorrow?
Well, I'll start off with JT Daniels. I mean, there's been a lot of hype around JT Daniels, but has JT Daniels played in a big-time game? So anytime that you're talking about two top five teams playing, that's a big-time game. So he did well against the Mississippi States, Missouris, and then Cincinnati. But this right now is an opportunity to say, is JT Daniels, is he as big and as bad as everybody says that he is? James Cook is another guy. I think that he is a swing player. You can put him into the slot. I think he can run some angle routes. I think that he's going to be a big-time player and really make a name for himself. As far as the receiving core, you know, we've got, you know, some injuries here and there. However, we talked about it yesterday. Jalen Johnson being just a recent walk-on who just received a scholarship. Who's to say that he won't go in there and make a play and really, really fight for Georgia? He's fought, you know, to get that scholarship. Now is going to be his opportunity to be that big-time receiver.
You know, to add on to that one, I think a name that Georgia fans probably know, but has the potential for the national media to catch on, and that's Brock Bowers. You know, looking into the situation where, you know, everybody knows that Darnell, Tyke, you know, these huge names that Georgia was expecting to lead on in this game are probably not going to be playing. Obviously, I haven't heard anything official yet. At least I haven't. But, you know, the expectation is that Darnell is going to be out, and he had the expectation of, you know, getting a huge jump, you know, in regards to catches, in regards to being a part of that offense, and really being used in week one. You know, but Brock Bowers, you know, is not a slouch in its own. You know, looking at, you know, what he brings to the tight end room, you know, you look at the size that everybody gets caught away with 6'7", you know, and really the height and the measurables there of Darnell. Now he also can catch and everything like that. But one of the things that makes Brock Bowers so special is his ability to run. He literally is a tight end that can run like a pure receiver. And I think that can definitely cause problems for Clemson, whether it be down the middle or, you know, if a linebacker is put on him, which, you know, we'll talk about some weaknesses for each team a little bit later. But I could honestly see Brock Bowers having a big day, depending on execution, right? I think, you know, your point, JT has to, you know, make these plays and execute. And I think both sides, you know, we have to understand, you know, from a team's perspective, we have to execute. It's going to be hard. Both defenses are elite defenses, top 5 in the country. It's going to be a problem to sit there and execute. It's just a matter of who executes the most. And tight ends are quarterbacks' kind of favorite best friends basically, because they're always good. If you're having issues on the outside or whatever the case may be. But my expectation is that you have Brock Bowers. I think he has a big day tomorrow. But we'll transition this right here. I want to kind of take it into – I want to let Brad and Juan take this away, Aaron. From a standpoint here, I want to ask you kind of in y'all's games against Clemson and Georgia respectively, what was your favorite memory as a player? Brad, we'll start with you first. Juan, we'll go second. What was your favorite play? What was your favorite memory between the Georgia and Clemson rivalry?
Oh man, I think for us, the opening gun, coming down the hill, and I remember Georgia meeting us over at the hill, and they made us right at the bottom. I remember them coming over. I think they wanted to be a part of it, the excitement coming down the hill. So I don't see a whole lot of teams doing that, and Georgia came right up over there and almost worked their way through the band to get to us. So that kind of got us fired up there in that game.
Juan, what about you?
Probably the 95 game. Brian Smith, who was a South Carolina guy, he actually played at Spartanburg with I can't even think of the big running back that Stephen Davis threw me a wheel route, and I think that was the touchdown that actually put us ahead of Clemson, and then we held on and ended up winning. So that was a pretty cool moment.
Yeah, no, look, I love watching Clemson Georgia games. Obviously, there was been a time where Georgia wasn't good, or Clemson wasn't good, but those games still mean something. So obviously, this is for all 4 of us. We look at the interconference matchups, right? And I want to get your opinion on this, right? Obviously, Clemson fans, Clemson plays South Carolina to end the season. Georgia plays Georgia Tech. I want to get – would you rather this or that is going to be the type of question. Would you rather, as a Clemson fan, play a team like South Carolina every year, or would you rather have Clemson every year? That's from the Clemson side of things. Georgia, me and Juan, would you rather play Georgia Tech every year or play Clemson every year, and why? We'll start with Aaron and then work our way to Brad and then Juan.
I mean, if you're asking like the question about the quality – opponent, absolutely. I would rather play a team of the caliber of UGA to end the season every year. I don't care what playoff fans say, we don't want to lose like at the back end. I don't care about that, right? Making the playoffs is a byproduct of achieving all of your goals. And one of Clemson's goals is win the closer, right? That that's like an open-ended thing, right? We beat South Carolina. Well, if we're losing, that could be the closer, so on and so forth. But I do like the Palmetto Bowl. It is sentimental to me. I would love to play Georgia year in and year out. But if you're asking me to just do like a straight swap, my only hope is South Carolina can figure something out. So at least they're at least fun to play against.
Fair. Brad, what about you?
I like that, Aaron. I love these big games. I mean, I love a challenge. I think it's important, with the ACC being down a little bit lately, I think it's important for Clemson to be able to play these big games, get on the big stage, and prove to the rest of the world that they can compete with these teams. They've consistently beat a lot of high-level SEC teams over the years, if you look at their history and their record. And I love it. I think they should put more on their schedule. I think it's important for them.
Juan, I'll let you ask.
I agree with Brad. I mean, it's always nice to play big-time games, and I can't – in no disrespect, I can't think of the last time playing Georgia Tech that was actually a big-time game. And I was fortunate because all the years that I was at Georgia, I never lost to Tech. That was kind of that game that we get all our stats and, just kind of pat our stats up. But it was not so versus Clemson. I mean, Clemson that's a big-time rivalry. Clemson is, they're a top-tier team. Georgia is a top-tier team. So to play that each and every year, to say that you played, it's kind of like the Auburn, Alabama. Auburn is on top, Alabama's on top. But to play a Georgia Clemson game each and every year, that's going to mean something later on down the road.
I love all three takes so far on this. And to me, everybody understands tradition, right? Everybody understands, the Palmetto Bowl. Look, I was stationed in Charleston for 6 years. I understand the pure hatred that both teams have for each other. Also, as a Georgia fan, I understand the pure hatred for the nerds in Atlanta. Sorry, Georgia Tech, but that's just the way it is. But my thing is this. I think I would rather have the quality games over the tradition that we're used to. And then the reason why I say that is, one, trying to look from a grand scheme of things, right? The scope of college football is changing to the point where you have to sit there and play quality games. And I think a quality game like a Georgia Clemson every year, whoever wins that game, I would say that's a top-notch game every year for whether it be Georgia or Clemson. And honestly, I think it provides better football. I understand tradition matters. I like the tradition aspect within college football. I think there's that's something that separates it from every other sport, the tradition itself. I understand that. But if the tradition takes away from the quality product that's put out, people aren't going to care about your tradition anymore. They want to sit here and watch good football, watch good basketball or whatever. They want to watch a good product. And I think Georgia Clemson is a little bit better of a product, and we're about to find out tomorrow. So with that moving on right there, obviously tomorrow is going to be big on both fronts, right? There's injuries, things like this, right? There's some key players. If I'm not mistaken, Tyler Davis can someone fill me in on that news? I think he got diagnosed with COVID. Is that correct? Someone?
That's just running around the rumor mill.
Okay.
Wednesday night, Dabo was asked post practice about it, and just he didn't confirm nor did he deny it. We will find out about every player's true availability tomorrow. With UGA not releasing a depth chart, we kind of are keeping things tight for right now.
Gotcha. Now, so I didn't know if that was true or not. Obviously, there's been a level of sportsmanship, if you want to call it. Kirby, I don't think Kirby really ever releases a depth chart, so that's nothing new for Georgia fans. But obviously hearing about Clemson and things like that, like, to me, I think that's okay. I think magnitude of this game, I'm all for the kind of sportsmanship you're seeing. Like I said, make it interesting, and I think that's what's happening so far. But let's kind of continue about the game. Clemson's offensive line, if I'm not mistaken, they're replacing a couple key positions, and I think that's the center and the left tackle. What are your thoughts on, with Georgia's defensive line? Is Clemson ready? I mean, do you think Clemson's ready for that kind of defensive line? And Juan, we'll talk about this as well, because Georgia's replacing some key pieces here as well along the offensive line. But I want to get Clemson's opinion first. So whether it be, we'll go Brad and then Aaron, and then obviously Juan on this side. Is Clemson's offensive line changes, is that going to be a problem for Clemson, or will they be ready to go?
Man, I think they'll be coached up, ready to go. I mean, it's funny because back in the early 90s, you thought of depth, right? And depth team was Florida State. I mean, they had so much depth. They had 1, 2s, and 3s running in there. Just wore teams down, wore us down back in the early 90s. So I see Clemson as that same configuration. They have so much depth there. I mean, they're getting new guys in every year. They're able to play a lot of guys every game. They get a lot of experience every year, every game. So I think they're just going to pick up where those ones. I think they got 2 deeper, almost equally as good. So I think they'll be fine.
Aaron?
I mean, going into the, I think the person who said it perfectly was actually Dabo Swinney on Tuesday for his pre-week press conference. One of the biggest downfalls for Clemson last season was its lack of true depth at the offensive line spot. The gap between our 1s to our 2s and 3s was very significant, and that visually led to us struggling at some point to win the trenches. We are replacing we are replacing two guys, but we have all ACC counterparts coming in. I mean, Walker Parks was a ESPN true freshman All-American last year, right? He is expected to get that number one nod. Trotter and Rayburn both got amazing reps last season. They have truly developed to be number one quality. I think Clemson's offensive line is ready for UGA. That's a big bruising front. I think the only difference from Clemson's offensive line last year to this year is its 2s and 3s are actually more at game speed and ready to go in at the drop of the hat.
I was also thinking about that as well. Obviously, last year played a big part from everybody's standpoint because of the no off season, right? So you're basically learning on the fly, and from a depth standpoint, that takes a hit because the off season is the time where those guys will get their majority, if not all, of their reps, right? So with that being said, obviously you kind of see these things happen, right? Where your depth kind of, if you have to come in, sometimes they may not be as ready as you would think. So obviously with a full offseason, I do think that plays a part with depth being ready and being more coached. So it's obviously going to be interesting because, look, in a game like this, I have a feeling I never wish things like this, but I have a feeling people are going to get banged up. And when that happens, your number gets called and you got to go in, so you got to be ready. And that offseason is going to prepare both teams from a depth standpoint. But Juan, to our point here on the, Georgia's replacing – obviously Ben Cleveland at right guard, left tackle's a new spot for us to be, obviously be concerned about as well. What do you expect? Are we going to be ready tomorrow, or should we be concerned?
We should only be concerned because of how much time Venables has to scheme up a defense, and he is pretty much going to be a mastermind. So what we saw in the Cincinnati game is that JT got knocked around a little bit. Even with the veteran offense that we had last year, he was still able to stay in the pocket, kind of make some throws and do some different things. So he's going to have to be mobile. He's going to have to be able to work that pocket because whatever Brent is, whatever he's going to come at us with, it's going to be masterful. Trust me. Especially coming off of that loss to Ohio State. The tight ends kind of really gave him a lot of trouble. I see him trying to scheme for that, but also trying to confuse our younger linemen and trying to get pressure on JT, but also big time. He has so much to focus on when it actually comes to our run game. So, but I do think that even though that our line is young, or we may just have a little bit of inexperience, as great as those backs are, they should be able to just kind of clean up any mistakes, and then just they just need a little bit just to kind of bust through a hole and then just try to make a big play.
Looking into that too as well, I think Georgia's going to be walking out with obviously some questions. There's no depth chart, so we don't know until they walk out. Obviously there's assumptions and things can be made. But, my thought is, Cedric Von Prine Granger gets the start over Warren Erickson, obviously with his hand injury. So that's somebody that's getting put into a huge game. But I feel confident with Cedric because I just think that he has the intelligence and the athleticism and really knowledge of everything, to really lead that defense. Yeah. And that's huge because – obviously from a center standpoint, center has to, make the calls, see what the defense is giving them, and really, deal with line protections and, things like that. But the left tackle, I think, is the biggest question. But before that, right guard, I think you look at Tate Ratledge taking over, had a great offseason. I think he'll be fine there. The left tackle is my biggest concern because you have to get this right. You can kind of scheme, kind of from the interior side, you can scheme help for guards, things like that. But when you're on a left tackle spot, there's no helping that. You're basically out there, and if you make it, you great. If not, it's a long day. So I think you can look at Jamari Sawyer taking the reins at left tackle for this game. I would love to see Amarius Mims come in and do that. But look, with Clemson's defensive line, that is a hard test for anybody. And I think the experience is going to play the biggest factor here. So I think, maybe looking at Jamari Sawyer for this game, and then afterwards, being able to sit here and put Amarius out there and get him into a comfort level from the rest of the season. I think you could see that, and then slide Jamari back in, But that's a problem a good problem, because we have a lot of depth along that offensive line. But I do want to ask one more question here, and then we'll wrap it up for today's episode. What is your score prediction for tomorrow, and what is the key to winning the game for whoever you choose? We'll start with Brad, Aaron, and then Juan.
So some Clemson fans aren't going to be too happy with my score prediction, but I predict a close game. I think my concerns are, if I'm Georgia, I'm really studying that Ohio State film and really watching how they got mismatches on our defense, particularly the linebacker spot, one of the safety spots, the corners. How are they getting those mismatches? We had trouble running with running backs out of the backfield, covering the tight end. And you mentioned the tight end already. You guys, Georgia will probably use a tight end quite a bit and get those mismatches with motion. And, our D-line's solid. I think you got two electric offenses going at it tomorrow. I think it's going to come down to what defense is going to get a few more stops. And I think that Georgia probably is going to get a couple more stops, because I think they're a little bit stronger, front end to back end than Clemson is. I think there's a few holes there and a few concerns after watching last year's. Hopefully they clean those up. And Juan was right. Venables is going to draw up some creative schemes against Georgia. I just think final score is probably, it's going to be a close one, but I think that Georgia's probably going to take us 35-28.
Aaron, what about you, bud?
Man, Brad, I'm disappointed. I am disappointed.
I know you are, Aaron.
But
it's painful for me. I know it's painful for me, but got to be honest.
But for the most part, everything you said is very, very accurate. The one of the biggest matchups isn't actually, in my opinion, on like JT versus DJ. It's can UGA's defensive line get to DJ before Clemson's wide receivers break away from UGA's DBs. I mean, UGA's replacing every starter at that back half spot, bringing back Justin Ross, who is going to play in the slot. If you guys haven't seen a lot of Justin Ross in the slot, you should look at it. It's scary. It is scary good. So having that matchup either with Justin on a nickel or up against a safety is going to be a mismatch. But if UGA's defensive line can get at DJ, then none of it matters. So I think that's the biggest question mark is, can Clemson's offensive line buy DJ enough time, and can UGA's defensive line get after DJ? I think on the other side of the ball, when it comes to UGA's offense versus Clemson's defense, that's just going to be just a straight. We know what to expect there, right? Clemson's bringing back just about every starter on defense. UGA's replacing a few guys, but it's UGA on offense. They are going to reload. If gun to my head, I had to make a prediction. I don't predict on Clemson games because I usually get proven wrong and in some facet of it. I am going to go a little bit, I'd say 42-38 Clemson. I think Clemson jumps out a little bit early, like a 14-3, 17-7, and then UGA storms back. But I think Clemson just finds a way to get it done, whether it's a late turnover or just a late explosive play. But it's going to be a fantastic game either way, and it's a game. Even if Clemson loses, I'm not going to be significantly disappointed in.
I love hearing these takes right here. Aaron had it as a pretty high scoring game. Juan, what is your takeaways here, and what is your prediction?
I like the score, but I'm going to put Georgia on the other side of that. I'd say Georgia 42, Clemson 38. One of the key matchups, again, we just talk about that front for Georgia. And then DJ, what concerns me about DJ is he's kind of like that Ben Roethlisberger type guy. He's 6'5", 249. And I think that we can probably get to him, but it's going to be a matter of, hey, can we get to him before he just unleashes that laser that he has? And word has it that he has better arm talent than Trevor Lawrence does. So that's going to be one of those key matchups. And I'm just finding out right now, Justin Ross in the slot is a problem. That's going to be an issue, especially for an unproven secondary. And then when you talk about defensively for Clemson, we all know that they were pretty young last year, and the fact that they were actually able to make it to the semifinals with being such a young team. And then again, I think it's Schlosky. For the second time, he's been booted out of a game in the first half. So if he plays a full half without getting a targeting call, he's going to be front and center. He's going to be the leader of that defense. I just think that we're going to muster up a lot of points. I know that we have some injuries, but a good friend of mine, Todd Salo, he told he coached a team with me, and he told our team, he said, listen, we've got a built-in excuse. Are we going to be able to cash in on it? So Georgia has a built-in excuse. They've got injuries all over the place. They've got, certain types of issues. And if they were to cash in on it, nobody's going to be mad at Georgia. You have injuries, those things happen. However, are you going to be able to rise above those excuses and then, choose not to cash in that excuse and then just go? And I think that they get it done. But we talked about this before, Robert. I think that this is just part one. I do believe that Clemson, Georgia will play again in the national championship, if not the semifinals. It's going to be a matter of whoever wins or loses this game, who's going to improve from the time from tomorrow, till later on in the season to see who's actually going to, determine who's going to be a national champion.
I agree with that. I mean, y'all made it hard for me to sit here and give my take on this thing here. If I had to choose, though, I think Georgia, and it's not even going to be a high-scoring game in my opinion. I think, everybody looks at the potential on offense from Georgia and Clemson, right? DJ in his own right is super athletic, things like that. But let's kind of hone it back, at least in my opinion. Look at the defensive fronts on these teams, and understand just how hard life is going to be for both JT and DJ tomorrow. So I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring game. I've got 28-24 Georgia. And one of the things I think is key there is, like I said, whose offensive line is going to protect their quarterback to allow that offense to execute. Right? I think that's the key for the entire game is execution and protection. Because, like I said, both defensive fronts, you look at Clemson with Rasheed leading the head there and Miles Murphy, those guys are physical freaks, and really Jordan Davis on the Georgia side with Devontae Wyatt. You have, the plethora of edge rushers and things like that. It's going to create a lot of chaos for those offensive lines. Juan said it great here earlier. Brent Venables has had a lot of time to scheme this up, and I've rarely, if ever, seen him have two bad performances back to back. So keep that in mind as well. But I've got it 28-24 Georgia. But so for that is all we have for today, though. Brad, Aaron, thanks again for coming on. Juan, obviously it's a pleasure having you on with Mr. Co-host over here. Brad, where can people find you?
Where can they find me? On social media?
Yes, sir.
I just started getting on Twitter, man, to be honest with you. I'm on Facebook. I'm just started getting on Twitter, and I'll let you guys know when I get that up and running.
Sounds good there. No, that's no problem. Hey, look, man, social media can be a terrible thing at times. So I understand completely. Aaron, you've done this before. Where can people find you, though, man?
Absolutely. You guys can find me at FQ Clemson on Twitter, or you can, if you guys don't want to follow a Clemson account, I get it. You can also follow your Fifth Quarter UGA account. We also have a parent account called at CFB Home. Amazing content, amazing writers. But yeah, if you're looking for me directly and my flaming hot takes, it's at FQ Clemson.
Absolutely, man. I know I follow him. Look, if you're listening to this show, we're live on Facebook every Thursday and Friday, youtube.com/the DGD podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, listening in, make sure you follow, make sure you subscribe, rate us if it's Apple Podcasts, 5 stars preferred. On that note, though, guys, look, thanks again for coming on. It was a pleasure sitting here talking some of the biggest games. One of the biggest games that we're going to see in recent memory, I would think. Look, obviously, wherever the ball falls at the end of the game tomorrow, look, I think it's going to be a well-deserved win for either team. Obviously, this is a Georgia podcast, so my hope is for Georgia, but you have to respect the rivalry. It's a huge one. And on that note, guys, have a great day and go Dogs.
This is the DGD podcast. Go Dogs.
And on video, guys, we are here for the Q&A session of this. We're going to take comments. We're going to do questions here. I know I saw a good question here. We'll start this. Bank 6 earlier mentioned how important will special teams be, whether it be field position or et cetera. And he, parentheses, put Jake Camarda. We'll start with Aaron first. How important will special teams be? And then we'll rotate to Brad and then Juan and then myself.
I mean, just look back to Clemson UGA 2014. Todd Gurley takes a kickoff back that ties up the game, and it, for the most part, that was the changer of the game. Was Clemson moves down the field, Clemson scores, they take the lead, and they're like, all right, let's get a stop here. No, Todd Gurley doesn't get stopped at all. He goes all the way. So it is going to be very, very important. I mean, if you look at it from just analytics, you want to back up the opposing team as far as you can, make them have to go 80, 90, 95 yards every drive. It makes it almost impossible to score on every single drive. The plus side with Clemson, we have Will Spires, we have an 80-year-old back punting. So that experience there is going to help a lot. But both teams are some of the most well-balanced teams in the country. No one really has an edge anywhere, even at that special team slot.
Yeah, great take there, man. Brad, what about you, bud?
You got 2 tough defenses and 2 explosive offenses, so your key to the game is going to be special teams. Establishing field position, like Aaron said, keeping them deep in their side of the field, making them go the distance every time, because it takes one explosive play to turn the game, especially the tempo of the game. Field goals, obviously, punt team, punt coverage. You can't let that explosive big play happen at any point in the game, because it could be a tide turning moment.
Absolutely. Juan?
Agreed. Kirby was actually quoted saying that from the kickoff return, that's going to be an additional running back, just gaining yards. And so same thing with the punt return, but field position is going to be huge in this game. I don't want to have DJ with the ball like on our side of the 40, which, I'm pretty sure Clemson doesn't want JT on their side of the 40. And so that's going to be huge. And then, of course, everybody can go back and remember Kevin Butler with that 60-something yard field goal to topple Clemson
yes,
back in the day. But yeah, special teams is going to be huge. Field position is going to be huge. Just like Brad said, you've got two great defenses, two explosive offenses. However, you know, you're not doing yourself any favors if you're giving up big yardage on special teams.
Perfect takes, guys. I'll tell you this right here. I'm going to throw it back to the 2011-2012 national title game, Bama-LSU. And this right here tells you exactly why field position is key. There was an interesting stat in that game that LSU didn't even get past into their side or into Bama's side until after halftime. By that time, it was already over. That right there tells you that field position is key, right? Everybody understands how, you know, people forget about special teams until it becomes a problem, right? You know, looking last year, right? Georgia's been fortunate with kickers in recent memory with, you know, obviously Hot Rod, and then, you know, we had Blair Walsh even back in the day, right? Kevin Butler, like Juan mentioned. Now you've got Podlesny that helped us win the Cincinnati game. You know, so Georgia's been blessed with that kind of special teams. And with Coach Cochran last year, Georgia's special teams was a very elite unit in my opinion. You know, but you know, when you play the game, and Brad, Juan, you understand this because you played it, you know, specifically. There's three parts of a game. You have your offense, defense, and special teams. But everybody always focuses and hones in on the offense and defense. And the fact that it goes underrated is kind of, you know, concerning for me because, like I said, once it becomes a problem, then it's an issue that gets awakened. But, you know, I think it's a big factor in this game tomorrow, though. You know, who limits turnovers, right? Obviously, you know, Aaron mentioned the Todd Gurley kickoff return was huge, right? That was it's a momentum changing type of thing that can happen. And honestly, like, you know, like Brad said, whoever, you know, takes control of field control or, you know, executing really on special teams, I think that's who wins the game. It could very well make a special teams game out of this. Let's see if there's any other questions here. Just a lot of people talking in the chat. Brad, I want to bring this up here. We talked a little bit offline earlier today. If y'all watched the game last night, you'll know where this is coming in. The controversial no call here in the Ohio State-Minnesota game. The targeting that everybody knows it was targeting, but it wasn't called. Georgia and Clemson's been on this side of, you know, situation with obviously Wisconsin, you know, being targeted or being found, you know, as targeting. You know, Lewis seen last year against Kyle Pitts. Everybody knows that hit. You know, but I want to get your thoughts about this. You know, you were a safety, so you know how difficult it is, you know, kind of the speed of the game, things like that. Brad, I want to get your thoughts on targeting, and then we'll kind of move to Juan as well. You know, y'all are both players. I know y'all played on different sides of the ball, so I want to hear your thoughts on this targeting rule and just kind of just fill us in on, you know, what your thoughts are.
You know, one, I don't like the rule. I mean, being a defensive player, you know, I was a hitter, so I probably would have sat out of a lot of games. But I think that it's in place for a reason, for safety, which I understand. I think it's important. But I don't know any defensive player that's ever purposely targeted an offensive player. I think there's a natural lean to it. When you're trying to get to a player, make a tackle, I think you're trying to get your pads lower than theirs a lot of times, especially if a running back's coming through the hole and you're a run lane filler. So I don't ever think it's intentional. I think that they need to change the rule because no player should be disqualified for 2 quarters of a game because of a targeting. If they want to protect the game, you know, sit them out of series or, you know, a big penalty maybe that could affect the team. But I don't think that disqualifying these young men from a game for 2 quarters is the way to handle this. I understand why they're doing it because I think they want to make the game safer. I get it, but I think those big explosive hits are what make football. You know, yes, the last night's game, I sent something out on social media on Facebook and said, man, that definitely a targeting call should have been called. It could have affected Minnesota for sure getting back in the game. So it can definitely affect the game, like you saw last night. So I think that all in all, they got to get it right. They got to get it right for sure. So I definitely don't think they should be disqualifying kids for 2 quarters.
I agree with that. Juan, what is your thoughts from an offensive standpoint?
Yeah, and I'm a receiver, so I was running down catching passes. But I'm with Brad. I agree that it should be taken out. A lot of these plays are bang bang plays. It's not like a guy's holding some guy up and then he's just standing there like he's playing freeze tag, and then he just goes out there with intentions on trying to take this guy out. That's not it at all. Number one. Number two, you take a lot of the aggression or just the playmaking from a lot of these players where defensively they're taught to go after the football or to go and just get the man down as quickly as possible. So that can make things difficult. But I also agree too that they should not be disqualified for 2 quarters. I mean, if it were intentional, where again, like I said, if you're holding somebody up and then somebody intentionally goes and dives in head first to try to take a guy out, I get that. But look at Clemson the last 2 years in the national championship against LSU. Sklowski's out for this whole second half. Same thing with last year against Ohio State. And it's those momentum plays right there that can completely turn a game. That's not to say that Clemson would have come back and beat LSU or they would have beaten Ohio State, but you are definitely affecting the game and you're taking a leader off the field. So maybe a penalty, maybe a personal foul or something like that. But if it's not egregious, if they're not trying to do it on purpose, I just don't think that the rule is fair.
I love both of these takes here. Aaron, I think we might be able to agree on this, right? You can tell, from a fan standpoint, right? From me and Aaron being fans, obviously, I look at it in a sense that, you can tell when someone does something on purpose and when the intent is not intentional. And looking back at, look at Scene. Well, a perfect example is Lewis Scene hit in the Florida game again on Kyle Pitts. It's hard for a defender, and I'm gonna make the assumption here, Brad, since you were the former safety, you know firsthand. I'm just gonna try to say this and correct me if I'm wrong. With how fast the game goes, the speed of the game, it is almost impossible to sit here and make that kind of change at the very last second. Looking at just kind of me observing that hit, right? To me, the intent, he even tried to lead with his shoulder, but ended up, obviously you kind of have to understand the offensive side here. Pitt's trying to brace for impact and kind of, coming down. Mm-hmm. So the intent to me was never, it was never in question. I didn't think it was intentional whatsoever. However, then you sit there and you lose Scene in that game. And like Juan and Brad said before, game changers get taken out of games, and leaders get taken out of games. I'm glad that they changed it to where you're not sent to the locker room, but it still should not be a situation where you're disqualified. I understand the penalty. I understand that the change for the safety of the game. I understand, but it's almost you're trying to defy physics by this. You're trying. A defender would have to defy physics to make that change at the last second. Aaron, do you have anything else to add to this before we move on to the next question?
I mean, the only part of the targeting rule that I actually like and I want to keep in place is protecting defenseless players. Back in high school, I played slot. I took a pretty big hit, and just the understanding of having that protection from the referees is huge. I was never really scared to run across the middle, but outside of that, players shouldn't be disqualified because 10 times out of 10, I've never seen an intentional targeting, but 10 times out of 10, it's just usually the quarterback, the running back, the wide receiver ducks their shoulder, and it just happens to be helmet to helmet. It's a very gray rule. I think I like how it always goes to review, but they really need to do a lot to do a better job at not only protecting the players with the ball, but protecting the players who are playing defense. This is football. You can't wrap people in bubble wrap and then just throw them out there, right? That's not, it's not a whole lot of fun.
Absolutely. So we're going to move on to the next question here. Tanil asked me specifically, how am I doing today? That's her question. I'm doing well. I'm nervous. I'm excited. I'm in a glass case of emotion. I don't know how to feel. Like I said, I just feel excited and a little bit nervous. So that's my question. That's my answer there, Tanil. Aaron, I'm gonna let you take this one here, bud. If Clemson loses, is their season effectively over as far as playoffs?
Absolutely not. No, this is a game where I have been tweeting it for the past month. Both teams can lose this game and still find their way back in the playoffs. Yes, UGA's route, I won't say is easier, but isn't as significant. UGA has the ability to be a 2-loss team making the playoffs, right? The only question is, can they get over the hump and beat Alabama in the SEC championship, right? If they're coming off of an SEC loss, I don't think UGA makes it in, but if they beat Bama, they're in, as you should be. For Clemson, we couldn't afford another hiccup, right? Yes, I'm aware Clemson does not play the toughest schedule in by any means sense, right? We're kind of leaning on maybe Florida State being good again. Well, I don't think they are. I think they're a dumpster fire down in Tallahassee. And then when it comes to the ACC championship, every year it's either, it's Miami, it's UNC, maybe being undefeated, maybe having one loss. Unfortunately, that's just not the way both of those programs are built. They don't have the depth and they don't have the coachability to go completely undefeated into a ACC championship. But if Clemson goes 12-1 ACC champions, there is no way you can justify leaving them out unless every other team is just undefeated.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to switch it up here, guys. This question is not a question from the comments here. This is a question from me to Brad and Juan here, and this is related to high school ball here. So obviously both of y'all are connected through Buford, right? Obviously we talked about it. They're nationally ranked number 22 for those that are interested to know that. But both of you also have sons that are committed to D1 schools here, right? I want to get both of y'all's thoughts on this, just from me being a fan here. I love keeping up with high school ball. I think it's important to keep up with. Brad, we'll go with you first here. Obviously, your son Jake commits to Alabama, right? What is it like, having this kind of, from a father's standpoint, right? You played D1 collegiate football. What's that like watching your son grow up and go play ball at some of the highest levels of college sports?
Oh, it's amazing, really. As a father, all you want for your kids, is them to reach their hopes and dreams. He's been extremely special since he was little, and I recognize that, and tried to help guide his path the best I knew how, from mistakes and successes in my career, and help guide him along the way so that he was in the position that he's in now. And so it's so satisfying to see his hard work pay off, and I'm really thrilled for him, and he's been very blessed. But there's a long way to go. You got to keep working hard, keep praying, and stay healthy. So I'm excited for him.
Absolutely. If you're not familiar with Jake, obviously Georgia fans, huge commitment there with, Jake going to Bama, choosing Bama over Georgia, Notre Dame, North Carolina, just to name a couple other schools. But we'll transition into, before I do this, obviously played both ways, safety and I'm assuming receiver, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes.
Yep. So we're going to transition now to Ashton, which is Juan's son. Obviously, the quarterback there, committed to Stanford. What's it like, going all across the country? Great academic school. What's that like? And obviously the same question for Brad, or from Brad. Sorry.
Yeah, it's awesome. Again, just like Brad was just talking about, to see your child, reach their hopes and dreams, and obviously, there's places that, I wanted Ashton to go. But then after going to visit Stanford, it was just amazing. It was a home feel. It just kind of reminds you a little bit of Buford. So that was, the thing that was awesome about that. And then just, a great academic school. But I love that he just, he has his team right now in mind first. And it's great that Ashton and Jake are awesome friends. Ashton was actually in Jake's commitment video, which that says a lot just about Jake, who he is, and who he chose to have. Brad and I are really good friends, and so it's just amazing to get on the phone with Brad and we just talk. We've been talking probably for months and months and months just about where our kids are going to choose to go, and just the excitement. Again, we both had an opportunity to play D1, D1 football, and now that it's come to fruition, it's just awesome. And so now they've got to go and finish up, and I'm looking forward to that Ashton to Jake connection coming up here as they go out there and finish out their season.
Absolutely, guys. I know I like keeping up with it. Obviously, me being North Carolina, I have my own football to deal with, but I do like keeping up with some of the big time programs down in Georgia. Right, y'all pump out D1 talent just like several other schools there. So obviously, best luck to Buford, both Ashton and Jake, for the rest of the season, and obviously kind of keeping up with them as they make that transition from high school into the collegiate levels. We're going to end it here. Brad, Juan, Aaron, are there any questions? Maybe just kind of do a question. If we have a question for any one of us, is there one last call for any kind of questions that one of us might have for another or anything like that before we wrap it up?
I actually didn't know that both Brad and Juan are based out of Buford. I'm actually based out of Forsyth County, so I'm actually right for Forsyth County News a little bit. So it sounds like I need to get out to Buford and catch a game.
Well, I live in Forsyth, Aaron. Where are you in Forsyth?
I am right off the square, downtown Cumming.
Okay, I'm not far from you. Yeah, I'm close. I'm in Cumming. Yeah, we're right down from South Forsyth and Lambert High School, so not far.
Yeah, I went to Forsyth Central.
Okay, Forsyth Central. I know Forsyth Central really well. Awesome. And we're neighbors.
Small world. I was going to say small world for y'all guys down there.
Absolutely. A lot of Clemson, Georgia folks around here. That's for sure.
Forsyth County's fun.
Oh, absolutely. It's a great spot. So we love Forsyth and Buford. So it's great areas.
What a small world, ain't it? I didn't expect that to transpire, to be honest.
Yeah.
But hey, guys, look, like I said, obviously for those watching, gets a little extra tidbit here. Look, like I said, it was a pleasure to have y'all on. Obviously, can't wait to see what the outcome is tomorrow. Look, college football's back, so obviously tomorrow is going to be key. But I'm going to be watching basically around the clock if I can. But look, hey, like I said, thanks for coming on. Y'all are more than welcome to come on anytime y'all want. We'll obviously stay in touch, and we'll end this show.
So
thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
Talk to you, Brad.
Great. All right, Juan. See you soon.
Absolutely, man. It's always a pleasure to be on.
Thanks.
All right, guys. That is all we have for today. Go Dogs, and tune in Thursday. Me and Juan coming on for the Clemson game review.
Awesome.